Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. This is your hood friend Borline Oxhorn, and I'm here today to talk about my 5 personal rules for using mods with Fallout 4. But first I want to clarify that there is no wrong way to play this game, or any game for that matter. When a player spends money on a game, he or she is free to play that game any way that makes that person happy. Whether you use mods, whether you don't use mods, whether you cheat, whether you don't cheat, it's all okay. No one should be made to feel guilty for playing the game the way they want. Really, the only caveat to that is in multiplayer games when you're cheating to get an advantage at the expense of other people. In that situation, then yeah, I do have an issue with that. But in single-player games, there's no such thing as the wrong way to play the game. Now, as many of you know, I do use mods for Fallout 4. I show them off in a variety of different videos, and every now and then I will get a comment from somebody who disapproves. They'll say something like, "You're using mods, Oxhorn? Well, why don't you just use cheat commands to make yourself level 1000? I typically ignore such comments when I get them because it's clear that the person making such a statement really has never used mods and doesn't understand what mods actually do. Because it's entirely possible to use really cool mods without cheating. Bethesda doesn't feel this way, which is why they've disabled achievements if you even load an ESP file in your game. And that's a bummer, because they're wrong. There are so many mods that simply alter a texture, or something simple like that, that doesn't change the way the game works. It simply improves your enjoyment of it. Anyway, when I mod my game, I follow these 5 simple rules to maximize my enjoyment of it. These are just rules I created for myself. I'm sharing them with you not because I'm telling you that you need to follow these rules, far from it, but just so that I can explain how I choose to mod my game, and maybe inspire some of you to use mods when you otherwise wouldn't because you thought they were cheating. Number 1, the mods must be lore friendly. Nothing causes me to ignore a mod more quickly than if it has Wolverine's face on a t-shirt. The reason is because Fallout 4 exists in an alternative history where the transistor was never invented, locking the world in a 1950s-ish cultural stasis. That's where the history of Fallout 4 diverges from our real world and off into its fantasy world. Thus, any popular culture that was invented after the 1950s would never exist, in the way that we understand it, in the Fallout 4 universe. For example, Wolverine was invented in the 1970s. I believe he first appeared in a comic in 1974. So you certainly wouldn't see him on a t-shirt, especially not the movie version of Wolverine that we know of today. So any clothing mods, posters, wall art that references popular culture that the world of Fallout would never understand or even know about, I simply ignore. To keep things lore-friendly, I really like mods that use assets that are already in the game, that just combine them in unique and new ways. For example, OC Decorator is a wonderful mod that really doesn't change anything in the game, it just overcomes a limitation of the game as you get it. It allows you to place items found in the game in a static way so that neither you nor your settlers can knock them over as you're walking by. It doesn't add new items, it simply allows you to place existing items as decorations. A couple of other good examples are Dino's Decorations, which again simply reuse in-game assets but organize them in a nice way, or Do It Yourself, allowing you to clutter up your settlement in a realistic and lived-in way. Now, I don't force myself to only use mods that reuse in-game assets. I allow myself a little bit of freedom in that regard. For example, there's a mod that allows you to craft showers, sinks, and toilets. And I feel like that mod is alright because if Fallout 4 were a real world, you would have people using the bathroom and taking showers. It would exist. Now, the nice thing about the mod I use is it incorporates a lot of in-game assets into kind of jerry-rigged toilet, sink, shower combinations that look like they're meant for this post-apocalyptic wasteland world. In short, I like to use mods that simply recombine in-game assets, or if they don't do that, then it's a mod that provides you with something that would exist in this world if it were real. An example of another mod that I like that I feel fits this situation is Laundry Day. It gives you a laundry station where you can launder dirty versions of clothing and turn it into clean versions of the clothing. I figure, hey, if Sturgis can repair a suit of power armor that runs on a nuclear fusion core, then somebody can fix a laundry machine so that it launders clothing. Now, examples of mods that I don't feel fit into this rule. Build Your Own Pool is an example. I love the mod. I reviewed the mod. I think the mod author is incredibly talented. But it comes with a bunch of really clean marble tiles, and you could basically build these beautiful spas. Now, I use the mod for generating water in my settlements. Waterfalls, puddles, pools. But there's a lot about the mod that I just restrict myself from using because it wouldn't fit in this world. It's not lore-friendly. Another example are the variety of radio station mods out there. Many of them are very clever and very cool, but they wouldn't exist in this world. You're not going to be listening to a Korean pop band in 2888 in post-apocalyptic Boston, right? It just breaks the lore. Number 2, the mod must be theme-friendly. The theme of this game is settlers and scavengers and wastelanders are cobbling together scrap and junk that they find in the world to create new things. Everything is dirty, everything is pieced together with duct tape. Nothing is new and shiny, unless of course it was generated by the Institute. For these reasons, I love mods like Thematic and Practical. That mod is one of the best mods that achieves this goal for me, because it basically just takes scrap lumber, scrap toilets, scrap bits and pieces, and combines them in new and interesting ways, using cinder blocks or spare tires to create chairs and stools, for example. It's a wonderful mod that keeps the game theme-friendly. In short, when I'm looking at mods, I want a mod that allows me to make something as best as I can make it within the terrible, taped-together world my character finds himself in. Nothing with shiny chrome textures, nothing with clean textures, and for those reasons, I don't use mods like spring cleaning. Many viewers will say, hey Oxhorn, there's a big pile of garbage in the corner. You know, you can remove that using spring cleaning. And spring cleaning is a very nice mod, but the problem with spring cleaning is it cleans too much. I will sometimes disable large piles of garbage if I feel like it's something settlers would have removed on their own. But what spring cleaning does is it just removes not only piles of garbage, but any sort of rough and dirty decal or a little puddle of water. And some of those things actually add a lot of interest to a settlement or to the world. And that's kind of part of it. This is a really rough and tumble world. It's beat up, it's filthy. To remove all of that really kind of ruins the theme of the game. Another example is Snap and Build. Many viewers are saying, why don't you use Snap and Build? It comes with a lot of new building textures and stuff. And I think that Snap and Build is a great mod. It's incredibly clever. But what it does is it gives me a lot of things that wouldn't exist in this world. Clean marble, new tiles, brand new wood shingles, newly painted buildings, untarnished wallpaper. All of those things look really good, but they wouldn't exist in this world. This world is about ripped wallpaper and rotting wood. This world is about broken tiles and tarnished chrome. And I prefer mods that keep with the theme. Parallel to this idea is using decorations and furniture that really wouldn't work in that context. For example, the mod Homemaker comes with a lot of really cool Institute stuff. But that kind of stuff really, it should exist in the Institute. We're talking about huge panels with blooping and bleeping lights. We're talking about beautiful plastic and glass windows and elevators and shower sets. I mean, all of that is really cool, but it really only exists and can exist in the Institute. That is the place where that theme exists. To take all of those things and put them in Sanctuary, it's not really going along with the theme of the game for me, so I choose to not use mods like that. Number 3, the mod must not give my player any undue advantage. So, of course, I don't use mods that generate cheat scripts like infinite ammo, or unlimited scrap, or 1000 fusion cores. For my survival character, I don't install mods that allow fast travel, because the point of the survival portion of the game is to limit fast travel. It's to make it feel more realistic. I don't use mods that give me new armor sets that are twice the normal armor factor of regular armor sets, for example. Now, sometimes there's a little bit of a gray area here, and I struggle with it when trying to decide how I want to go about it. For example, the jetpack. I have a jetpack mod that allows my player character to use a jetpack even when she's not in power armor. Now, this could be interpreted as giving your character an advantage. I rationalize it like this. Jetpacks were clearly intended to be in this world. That's why Bethesda put them on the back of power armor. And the negation of falling damage is clearly intended to be in this world. That's why Bethesda put the freefall legs in the game, and why Bethesda created the Acrobat legendary effect. The only thing they didn't do is combine those two. Now, if you can put a jetpack on a suit of power armor, it figures that you can take the jetpack off a suit of power armor. If you can wield a laser gatling that runs on fusion cores without being in power armor, then surely you can fuel a jetpack with fusion cores without having to be in a suit of power armor. So for those reasons, using a mod to strap a jetpack on the back of my character is lore-friendly, theme-friendly, and it really doesn't give my character any advantage that you couldn't otherwise get in the game. The frustrating thing about the jetpack mod for the power armor set is that it's so incredibly useful, especially when doing settlement building, that I can't imagine playing this game without it. And yet it's only available on power armor, while there are lots of builds that don't need power armor or don't use power armor. And I think it's unfair for somebody who chooses to use armor in the game and to be a sniper and to be quick and to be nimble, but is kind of locked out of this other aspect of the game simply because they chose not to use power armor. So in my game, I rationalize the jetpack as not really giving my player character too much of an advantage, since it does exist in the base game. But what doesn't exist in the base game is a way to scrap inventory items outside of workshop mode. For that reason, a mod that allows you to have portable workbenches, for example, would give your character too much of an advantage. The game has carry limits in place for a reason. It wants you to spend your spec points to improve carry limits, and to think about your resource allocation, to think about what you carry with you into the field so that you just don't carry your entire armory with you. That limitation to the gameplay is important for me that I want to keep, so I don't use mods that turn the weight of every item into 0 or give me unlimited carrying capacity. And I don't use mods that allow me to bring portable workbenches so that I can scrap items as I find them. That also, I feel, goes beyond the scope of the game and gives me an undue advantage. Number 4, don't stray from the game's design. I like mods that reuse things that are already found in the game in a new way. I prefer not to use mods that introduce completely new things to the game or to the world. For example, there are a lot of really cool mods on the Nexus that give you real-life guns, really cool guns that you can use in real life, but that don't exist in this game. As clever and as cool as those mods are, I choose not to use them. I prefer to stay within the limits of what has been created in this game and the lore. The same is true with outfits and suits of armor and power armor suits. I recently reviewed a mod that gives you access to the Institute power armor set. I currently don't use that power armor set in my game, but I would if I really wanted to because I feel like it fits in with the theme of the game. That suit of power armor is actually based on concept art for the Institute by the developers, so it was clearly envisioned as being lore-friendly and thematic by the developers. So that one would be alright. An example of what wouldn't be alright is the TES-51 Power Armor Skyrim-inspired mod by Edible Grenade 12. It's one of the most popular mods on the Nexus, and for good reason. The power armor suit looks amazing. It is so cool. But it's not really fitting within the theme of the game, and it strays from the game's design. Fallout 4 is designed to be a post-apocalyptic 1950s-inspired world. It's not a world where people have horns on their helmets or runes inscribed on their armor. That has a very different look and feel, and so I would feel like that wouldn't work in this world. But an example of a mod that I currently don't use, but I think would work in this world, is the Enclave XO2 power armor set by Anoctium. The XO2 set of power armor actually exists in Fallout lore. You find it in Fallout 3, it's even in Fallout New Vegas, but you have to use the console to get it. It's simply missing from Fallout 4. So it does exist in this world, and even though I kind of think it looks a little goofy, as well done as it is thematic, and it doesn't stray from the game's design. Also, I recently reviewed a mod that allows you to actually generate new synths. Now this is an interesting one because it uses all in-game assets, which is a rule of mine. It is thematic. It's thematic with the Institute. It doesn't really give you an advantage, all it does is generate new settlers, but you could always use the Automatron settler exploit to get as many as you want anyway. It is immersive, but it does stray from the game's design. Generating synths is supposed to be the pinnacle of Institute technology. It's almost this dark science that the Institute has figured out, and for the sole survivor to be able to just create a synth generation factory in any settlement seems outside the scope of the game. In my opinion, that breaks the game's design. It's still really cool, and I loved the mod so much that I reviewed it, but I personally don't use it in my game. And number 5, it's okay to improve immersion. There are a lot of mods out there that actually make the world much more convincing than the way that Bethesda presented it to us. And so I really like to use mods like that. For example, there are a variety of new outfits and costumes that you can download. Some of them don't make a lot of sense. As I said earlier, they've got comic book characters on them, or they're made out of really thin lace that wouldn't last 200 years. But many of the outfits do make a lot of sense. The reason I like costumes like that is because your settlers cycle through the same 10 outfits. And if you have settlements with lots of settlers like I do, you see the same 5 or 6 settler faces wearing the same 9 to 10 outfits in every single settlement. That wouldn't exist in a real world, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. So in my games, I have a mod installed that gives me access to upwards of 90 different settler faces, meaning that it's going to be rare for me to see the same face twice. I've got hundreds of different costumes that my settlers could spawn in, and I try to make them as thematic as possible. For example, I have every single vault suit from Fallout lore, from every vault that has been mentioned in Fallout lore. I figure that Wastelanders are coming from all corners of the Commonwealth, some from some of the vaults, having escaped from the vaults, seeking sanctuary at one of my settlements. I use the higher settlement budget mod to allow me to build larger settlements because in the real world there is no limit onto how large you can build a settlement. That limit is simply in there for hardware reasons. It's in there to protect your game from having too low of a frame rate hit. And I really like mods that improve upon the textures that Bethesda has given us. For example, I've always really hated the textures for ammunition and chems in the game. I thought they were lazy and they were ugly. And there's this wonderful mod by FLA442 that improves the texture of all chems in the game. And for ammo, my favorite retexture is by Devious Methods. It's simply called Better Ammo Boxes. It keeps the ammo boxes looking weathered like they've been sitting around for 200 years, but it gives each one a unique skin that really feels more realistic than the ones that come with the game. Another good one is JESTERS Better Ammo. I really like it, but not quite as much as I like Better Ammo Boxes. There's a mod that makes the helmet for the hazmat suit transparent, which of course it should be, right? You should be able to see through a hazmat suit. So I installed that one. I think that improves immersion. And there's another mod that actually allows you to see through the eyes of a power armor helmet. It scales down the size of the power armor helmet to more fit an actual human's head and allows you to see through the glass into the eyes. While I think the final look to this is a little bit silly, the idea of the mod is really cool, which is why I experimented with it for quite some time. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. I just wanted to share with you my personal philosophy on how to use mods the best way for my game. Again, this is just the way that I choose to play my game. I'm not saying it's the right way, the best way, or that you should be playing your game this way if you choose to use mods. I simply wanted to share with you the way that I go about it to give you a little bit of context so that hopefully you can enjoy my videos a little bit more. To recap, number 1, the mod must be lore friendly. Number 2, it must be theme friendly. Number 3, it must not give my character any undue advantage. Number 4, it shouldn't stray too far from the game's initial design. And number 5, it's okay to improve immersion. I hope you enjoyed this little video. If you did, please subscribe for more Fallout 4 and mod content. Stay tuned for more videos. I produce a new video each and every day. And thank you all so very much for watching.